Oh,
Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Ralph. Hi, Christy. Hello, Natalia. Welcome to everyone. This is our weekly IPA, Independent Producers Association for Public Media. We have two special guests, great guys. We're going to be talking about live streaming today. This is kind of a broad subject, not specifically for public media, but it is going to be so beneficial for everybody. Since COVID, everything is moving online. If your productions are on hold, we have some creative ways to stay engaged with your audiences, create content for your audiences. And what I love especially about today is really upping your game on live. As you can see today, I am just using my laptop camera. But if you see Ryan Grams, who's on the bottom, well, actually, can we see everybody?
hey.
Yeah. And Kevin O'Leary from Samantha Brown's Places to Love. You know Kevin. Hey, Kevin, you got a smile on your face. Can you hear us?
I
Is
hear
he
you.
frozen? Oh, maybe he's frozen.
I think he's frozen in
Kevin,
the
can
most
you hear
wonderful
us?
pose.
I can hear you.
Oh, you're frozen with this grumpy face.
What? It's fine on mine.
Oh no, you're totally frozen.
I'm
Anyway.
smiling like crazy right now.
Oh no. Okay. Well, you're totally frozen on not a smile face right now. But as everyone's coming in, almost all the attendees, we had about 17 people registered, so we're going to wait till a couple more people come in. But today we are talking about live streaming. Kevin, yeah, you're totally frozen right now.
You might want to try turning your video off and back on, the stop video, start video, or maybe rebooting the app you're using.
Yeah,
Kevin,
let me dial back in.
Kevin usually does have a smile on his face, so we don't.
That was quite enjoyable, though.
It was pretty good. So again, I'll have Ryan, while Kevin's getting back in, why don't you introduce yourself to, in this room we
Absolutely.
have producers. Here we go.
Hey,
There we
Kevin.
go.
It's working.
You were like this
Really?
for like a really long time. All right.
That's my trademark.
It was great. So I'm Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself? And then Kevin, you can reintroduce yourself as well.
Absolutely. Well, I am Ryan Grams. I'm a technologist and a filmmaker. I'm the owner of Uptop Films, a production company here in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I've been making video content and film content for, 20 years now, since as long as I could hold a camera and shoot and edit video. And we've recently kind of pivoted a lot of what we've been doing to different solutions that work now in whether it's remote shooting or it's helping kind of create content or help create virtual studios or actual more portable studios for individuals wherever they might be, so that they can have a way to have a better virtual presence, I guess is kind of the big way we've been doing it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ryan. And Ryan's going to talk us through, as you can see, his setup, how clear he is, super professional, how he had that beautiful overlay that came on. Today, we're really talking about from soup to nuts of like the super basic of what you can do for doing live streaming to the ultra, ultra professional to invest in some high quality cameras or cameras you already may have if you're already doing production to live stream. Kevin, are you still with us? Mr. O'Leary? Hey!
Hey!
Sorry, I'm having all kinds of problems here. I don't know what's going on.
It's okay. It's better you get the kinks out now before you go live on air selling Sam's luggage tonight. So what Kevin's going to be talking about, and Kevin O'Leary is the executive producer of Samantha Brown's Places to Love. They have been hosting a weekly live, sort of behind the scenes live stream that Sam and Kevin do in their home, talking through the episode that's simultaneously airing on Create. If you want to go into that a little bit, Kevin.
Sure. My computer is going crazy right now. Can you hear me properly?
Yeah, we can see you. We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like blinking like it's
Oh no.
it's on fire. I don't know what's going on. But yeah. So we I think we actually got into the Facebook Live thing late. I think in reality, I'm not sure. It just always seemed like a bigger deal, and there was always this thing that you had to be 10 minutes. When they first launched Facebook Live, it was like, oh, don't bother doing it. It's not 10 minutes because 10 minutes is when Facebook I don't know. It's this whole thing that we never really did anything for that reason. But when Create started airing our third season after the first season, after it premiered on kind of normal PBS, we, being home and having nothing to do, we thought, why don't we start talking through these episodes as they're broadcast live? And so we did the first one. It just didn't work. Actually, we didn't have the bandwidth to do it at our place upstate. And the second one kind of worked. The third one, it was just like, it was a comedy of errors of trying to get us kind of where we were. And I had a joke, like every couple of weeks I would add a new feature and add something else, and kind of to where we are now. And I think probably the first and foremost thing I want to mention for this audience is that, you know, Michaela, if you want to start the one with the red sweater.
Yeah, and I think people can't see you, but that's okay because I'll be showing video of some video, so you can talk it through. They can all still hear you. If you can't hear Kevin, he's talking, just let us know. But we can definitely hear you. So
okay, yeah, I'm not surprised because I don't know my computer's just going nuts.
Yeah,
right
that's okay.
But yeah, so if
do you want me to play with sound or no sound?
No sound. You don't need sound.
Okay. Okay, it's playing.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't see it. Yeah, so, you know, we started out as, you know, with an iPhone, and that was it. And it was like impromptu. And we had planned on making a better system, and it didn't work. And I kind of know why it didn't work now, but it's kind of doesn't matter. But so at the last minute, we just scheduled Facebook Live, and this video you're watching right now in the red sweater, it didn't work. So we had to basically cancel the Facebook Live, open up a new Facebook Live, just kind of impromptu with a different link and all that stuff. So like anyone that was sitting on the old one wouldn't know if they didn't look that there was a new thing there. And the important point of this is that we had probably more views for this, I think this one, than for any of the other ones. So as far as, you know, the topic matters, the content matters. How it looks is bonus. How it sounds is bonus, I think. But, you know, if people aren't interested in what you're talking about, it's not going to matter. It's kind of the first point.
Yeah, it says it has over 50,000 views. And so the fact that if you can get content that is engaging, people are going to watch. People are going to stick around.
Yeah, and it was kind of, it wouldn't surprise me if there's some immediacy to someone holding an iPhone versus having a really nice, you know, lockdown pretty shot. You know, I think there's a place for that, I think. You know,
so now, Kevin, I'm going to pull up what you guys just did last week,
okay.
and the difference of showing what that is. And you can talk about the progression of how you've changed your setup and what you include in those lives too, because it's not just talking to the camera and to the audience.
Yeah. So I can't see the screen, so but you can hear me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so we, you know, over time I kind of added some features, and the big thing that I added more than anything else at first was a program. I'm a Windows guy, so I use a program called vMix, and they have like a 90-day trial, so you can really try to see if it's the right thing for you over a long period of time versus like a 10-day thing. But they do not do a Mac version. There's lots of Mac versions. I think Ryan can talk maybe more about that. And then there's OBS, which is the kind of probably the most popular one because it's free. But you know, they got me with the free trial, and I got to use it, got to know how to use it, and in the end, I paid to get the HD version of it. It was like $300, I think, so maybe $350.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, what vMix allows us to do is add that overlay, because the whole point of this is that we're watching this episode that in theory is playing at that exact moment on Create. And I'm like, well, that would be cool. I have these, I have the files. What if we could play it in the window that everyone's seeing on Facebook Live? Then it makes more sense than just talking, you know? So vMix allowed me to put that picture-in-picture window in place. And that's a really small amount of what vMix can do. vMix you can run like a talk show through it. You can have, you know, as many cameras as you can hook up to your computer to switch between. You know, there's a lot of power to what that can do to make a really nice streaming package of content.
Yeah.
And you know, and then the last thing, if you're looking at the latest video, is that I added a dongle onto my computer that allowed me to use my nice camera, not just kind of a crummy webcam. So if you look at the evolution of those videos, like you'll see a huge difference one day when there's a nice little blurry background, and you know, it's funny. I have a green screen. I've never figured out how to use it yet, but it's one of those things that at any point with vMix we could do that as well and have that background be anything. You know, it's an option. But,
Right.
you know,
And sorry to interrupt, but because what we're looking at now is Sam explaining what you're seeing on the screen. You're both wearing lavaliers, lav mics, so the sound is very clear. The sound of the video is also being pumped through. I've turned the sound off, but you've kept it very low so that you can really. Or did you turn it off completely now in the newer ones?
You know, it's funny. I've always liked the idea of having the video just kind of there. Not that you could hear what people are really saying because it would compete with Samantha talking, but I like the idea of some just so you could kind of hear it. But one week everyone was all over me like, it's confusing. I hear two voices. So I kind of have it almost at nothing now.
Right.
The audio of the show.
Yeah. And then on top of that, there's moments where I'll fast forward. You can post up these wonderful messages that people are saying. So it's really interactive and making the audience feel like, oh, Samantha Brown and her husband Kevin are both like talking with me, but they also shine a light on what I'm saying to the rest of her fans. Super interactive.
Yeah, and that's a feature of vMix. And honestly, it was one of those things that was really easy to do. You connect they have a separate app called the vMix Social, and you log into Facebook through that app. And just the defaults, or that what you're seeing there is the default things. I literally click, it loads in all the comments from a post. You got to pick the post you want to see the comments from, and it loads it into a big screen. And then you just click a comment, hit a button, and it pops up. You know, that's the default way of doing it. You can get really complex if you want, but that's the basic way that those comments kind of roll in.
Yeah, that's great.
And to your point, so like every couple of weeks I try to add a feature. So the first one was I added the picture-in-picture. Then I added on the comments. Then I added on the nice camera. And then the last one, I think you mentioned, is that we're wearing lav mics. And that was more me just practicing because tonight we're on Home Shopping Network broadcasting to national television from our house. And so I wanted to just get a little more practice with the lavs just to kind of make sure they work right. It's been a while since I used them. I bought those years ago and they've been sitting in a box. So it was not really needed because we're so close to each other and so close to the camera. But it was just a nice way to get a little more practice for that, knowing it was coming up tonight for what we're doing.
And it's super clear. I would highly recommend for anybody to just watch some of Sam's and Kevin's videos to see how they have this play with the interaction of their audience. The quality of the videos, see the huge difference. I mean, even today, Kevin, unfortunately, you've disappeared, but between Ryan's video and my video, I'm just using my built-in camera from my laptop. Ryan has a whole setup that he's going to be able to show us and kind of explain. The beautiful thing about this is you see the result of what Kevin is doing from a system that, oh, there you are, Kevin, from a system that Ryan, yeah you're back, that Ryan can set up. And it says, Anthony Barr wants to ask, do you use OBS or Wirecast for streaming through a higher end camera? And I think, Ryan, you'll get to that. Is that correct? Yeah, so we're going to get through all this tech stuff. And before we do, for those of you who feel a little overwhelmed right now, there are also really simple ways to just come up. Like Kevin said, they just got their camera and started live streaming on Facebook for one of the earlier videos. And we always like to say content is king, right? You want your sound to be good, but you also want your content to be engaging. So if you're thinking of doing interactive, engaging content that's live streaming for your audience so that they can really feel connected with you, I've started doing live streaming events, sessions every Tuesday and Thursday on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm just using the Instagram platform live. And then the other platform, there are third-party platforms, and we'll put this all in the webinar notes when we post this, but there are platforms called StreamYard. If you go to StreamYard.com or B.live, it's BLive.tv or B.live. It's basically a third-party platform that can help you to direct. It's almost a little better than Zoom. You can also use Zoom and feed onto your Facebook page and your Facebook business pages, do interviews, all these things, but you can brand it with your logo. You can put that underlay or the overlay with the Facebook interactions and comments. It's really fun to play with. And all these have like starter free, uh, you can do it for 14 days free, 2 weeks free, a month free, a week free to try it out and to stream on your platforms. And you really have a grasp of this is totally branded. You can really make it within your own voice and you have a little more creative control versus just doing a straight up live. But if you don't, because I'm going to pass the mic on now to Ryan about how to really step up your game and to create those live streams that look as professional as his right now, and also Kevin's and Sam's when they do these lives with the overlay of the video. If you don't have that capacity yet, you can still do beautiful live streaming because if your content is engaging, it's really worth trying to interact with your audiences live. I know Kate Sullivan from To Dine For, she's been doing interviews just on the Instagram app. So she'll call up, one of her guests and start doing an interview right there. And it's all you need is your phone and good Wi-Fi, and your other guests, same thing, maybe using a headpiece, and you've got your setup. So if there's anything else you want to add, Kevin, sorry, I wanted to interject that in so that people know that there's simple apps to do some of the stuff if you don't want to do the whole setup. But before we lead Ryan in, was there anything you wanted to add on your end too?
No, I think that's, you know, the technology side of things is kind of a rat hole, and I'm looking forward to jumping into maybe a little later after this, but after Ryan talks. But it's there's a lot to it, but also you could do it on your iPhone. That's the beauty of where we are today.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. All right, Ryan, I'm going to pass it to you.
Fantastic. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Great. Cool. Well, first off, thank you, Michaela, for having me on today. When my friend Juliana Brosti, aka Traveling Jules, just suggested that you and I connect, I thought, yeah, that'd be a great thing. And then I think you and I had a short call right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
And man, hearing a little bit about what you're doing with IPA, it's so cool that you're just moving forward with this and finding ways to help people. I love what you're doing, and I love to be a part of this. So thank you so
Thanks,
much for
Ryan.
letting me be here with you guys today. And then, dude, Kevin, man, I'm a little starstruck, to be honest, to kind of be on here with you guys. Like, I love what Samantha's been doing with her own channel and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, you're a huge part of making that happen. And so to be able to share the virtual stage with you, man, it's really cool to be here. And I love finding other people to be connecting with, other fellow nerds to geek out on stuff with. So this is great, man.
Yeah.
And the big thing that you said about the content being the most important, that was the first lesson I learned in video production is you can have the fanciest camera, fanciest microphone, but if your content isn't any good, no one's going to watch. And inversely, if you have a really crappy camera and a really crappy microphone and you have great content, at the end of the day, that's going to be a much better thing. So make sure your content first is engaging, and you want to lead with that. And I think that's applicable everywhere. Obviously, I'm a huge video nut, and I'm obsessed with gear and finding tools and solutions and all these things. But I'm always trying to remind myself to not let that overshadow the content behind what I'm doing. So, man, I'm right on board with what you're saying there. So, thank you for sharing that with us, Kevin. Yeah. So, Michaela had kind of asked when we first talked what kind of things I was up to, and I was sharing with her this idea that I'd come up with. My wife and I were talking one day actually about all the different ways that I'm kind of a lot of what I mentioned earlier. A lot of what I'm doing is consulting with different folks to say, hey, how could we improve your kind of virtual presence and virtual setup? And so I came up with this little acronym call. Oh, it's right on the light bulb there. I didn't plan that. It's kind of fancy, but it also makes it kind of hard to see. Call four things to remember: camera, audio, lighting, and location. Those are the four things that I as like a foundational standpoint, that I usually start with when I'm meeting with somebody, or just when I'm chatting with somebody. Like, hey, what are some things we can recommend? What are some core things to start thinking about? And so what I've done is kind of put together a few of these kind of go-to items that are kind of good starting points to start talking about some of those things. So let's see if I can do my screen share here. There we go. All right. So camera, these are the first two cameras that I think are a great starting point. Canon has done a really cool job, I feel like, of opening up some software. So for both Windows or Mac, no matter what you're on, you can plug in a few specific, quite a few actually. There's a big list on the Canon website of what cameras work with this. It's called the Canon Webcam Utility Beta. So it's in beta right now, but it works pretty darn good. And the two cameras that I really like using are the Canon M50, which is actually the camera that you see here. This is the Canon M50 that I'm using. And the other one that's a little bit more affordable is the Canon M200. And as you can see, there's a couple different ways the screen flips out. And there's a couple of things to think about with that. I personally like the screen that flips above the camera in terms of being able to see my preview right above the lens. It looks a little more natural. But the microphone that I'm going to recommend next when we're talking about audio doesn't have a great way to clip to this camera with that current setup. So that's one of the reasons. It's silly, but one of the reasons I like the Canon M50 is because of the way I can kind of clip the mic to the top of that. Now, they used to be the same price. It's kind of ridiculous, but I think the Canon M50 has become a little more of a popular camera. So they used to be the same price, the M50 and the M200, and now they just jacked up the price of the Canon M50. But for good reason, I think it is the better of the two cameras. So once more, yeah, that's the Canon M50 and the Canon M200 are the ones that I really like. Audio. I really like this mic here. This is the just relatively new microphone from Rode. It's the Rode Video Mic NTG. And what's so great about this mic is the fact that it has a USB jack on it. So what you see here is a little headphone jack, but on the other side of the microphone is a USB-C jack. And that USB-C jack is what lets you plug it directly from the microphone into your computer and just select it right in Zoom. So now you don't have to, you're not going through your camera, you're not going through everything. It's just, it plugs right in and it looks, it's easy to use. It just shows up right in Zoom. You just select the Rode Video Mic.
Kevin, can you show yours again?
Sounds really good.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Kevin, you want to show yours again? I know you were holding up. So that's
yeah.
The Rode mic.
It's a lot like that. Yeah. So this one here that I'm looking at is, so what he had there was the Video Mic Pro, and they just released this new one, the Video Mic NTG. NTG was another line they had, so this is kind of the combination of a couple of their lines. But the big difference being this one has USB out, which is kind of unique for this type of microphone. And these are what's called a cardioid pattern mic, meaning it's more focused. So that long kind of barrel, what that does is it's focusing where it's pointed at. That's what it's hearing more versus like a lot of people know and love this guy here. This is the Yeti Blue. It's a great mic. And it's affordable. Granted, it is hard to find right now because everybody's buying it because they think it's the one to get. And it is. It's great. But in order for that to sound good, you have to be like right on top of it. Versus when you have a cardioid mic like this, you don't have to be right on top of it. So, for instance, mine is about, I don't know, 2.5 feet away from me, just at arm's length right there. And in fact, I'll show you. I'll give you a little behind the scenes look real quick. I think it's working. No? There it is. Ha! So this is my kind of a side angle here. And it looks like the battery's about to die, so it might shut off. But if you can see, next to my camera here is my mic. So it's just plugged in. I have a teleprompter going on so I can see whoever I'm talking to, which is great. Oh, the battery dead.
Battery dead.
But if you remember, I had the mic kind of mounted next to my camera with a little arm. And it works really, really well. I'm a big fan of that. So moving back down the line here, audio, that's the mic I love, the Video Mic NTG. And these links down at the bottom here, these are Amazon links. If you're interested, they are affiliate links, so you know I get a small kickback if anyone uses those. But obviously, it's a great way to kind of support guys like me that are trying to find ways to help people. So yeah, callrye.com/NTG will get you to that mic.
And
lighting,
Ryan, we're gonna
yeah.
So for everybody knows, we're gonna be putting all of this information and the links in when we post this tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So don't worry about trying to take notes. All of these links will be in the posted webinar tomorrow. And again, if anybody has any questions during this, sorry to interrupt, you can either write them in the chat box, you can put them in the Q&A box, or if you really want to raise your hand and ask a question, raise your hand and I'll unmute you. And we're taking questions as we go. We will also have a Q&A at the end, but you feel free to ask a question anytime and I'll moderate that. Continue, Ryan. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. So far we've done camera, audio, lighting, and location are the next two. The one light that I've been recommending to a lot of people is this Pixel G1S. The reason I like it so much, honestly, is the quality to price ratio. It's about $70. Price kind of fluctuates a little bit depending on what day you're looking at it, but it's around $70 most days. And it's a full RGB light, which means you can do things like this where this isn't the light, but where I've got like color coming out of it. You can do that kind of thing, or you can treat it like a regular light. And what I recommend a lot of people do is take that light and instead of just pointing a bright light at you, get some foam core, bounce the light off of something white. Or in my case, I'm just using I have a white wall, so I'm bouncing my light off of the white wall, and that's what gives me this really kind of soft look versus if I had a light. Let's see, I think I've got one down here. There it is. Yeah! This guy here, this is the light, the Pixel G1S. If I turn this on, and it gets really bright, so this is full brightness here. If I were just to point this at my face, even if I turn it down, and I'll turn off my other lights here, it's just harsh. Kind of see how dramatic and, it's cool, I guess it works. But what I'd rather do is take something and bounce it off of a big white source, and kind of the difference there is it makes the look just a lot softer. And that's one of the biggest things that I think people can do to improve the quality of the lighting. And as you can see, like this
Also,
light
if
here,
you wear glasses, that's probably a better option because you always see the ring light reflecting off the glasses. That's a great.
yeah, well, ring lights in general, they're very, so they're all over the place, and a lot of people have them already.
Mm-hmm.
But the look of a ring light is kind of unique. When I'm working with a ring light, honestly, I do the same thing. I point it at a white wall or a white foam core or something, and have that light bounce off of it. And the ring light's got a big hole in the middle, so the light actually kind of bounces through itself. So it actually works pretty well in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a ring light, I would recommend trying to bounce it off of something instead of pointing it directly at you. It's still, I know it's kind of soft, but it's not as soft as if you can reflect it off of a nice bright white surface. To your other point, though, Michaela, glasses are a very common thing to try to work with. What I see a lot of the time is the screen that they're looking at reflecting on their glasses to their eyes. The one big trick that it's a little odd, but one thing that really helps is to turn the brightness down on whatever monitor you're using. That will cut down on the reflection. And yeah, your screen might be a little more dim than you'd prefer it to be, but your audience might be able to see your eyes a little bit better. So that's one thing that can really help with reflection and positioning of your lights. So if you've got a light right in front of you, you might be seeing that reflection of the light. Sometimes what it might need to happen if you're working with glasses is to move your light source a little further away. So now I'm looking. If I was looking this way, but my light's further over there, now I'm going to have potentially less glare. So it's all about playing and experimenting with where you are in relation to kind of where those lights are. And it's tricky though. I struggle with that a lot in my world. I work with actors and different spokespersons where I'm lighting them to look at a camera, and anytime someone's wearing glasses, it's always like, okay, how are we going to do this? Because it's always an issue. So it's more or less just playing with seeing where you can reposition things. But honestly, the screen brightness thing seems to be a good trick that has helped a lot of people. All right. That's lighting. Oh, one other thing I wanted to go back for a second on camera that I think is worth calling out. One of the other big reasons I really like this camera is it has autofocus. So as you can see when I was kind of showing different things, I can kind of bring it to the screen. It just takes a second, but I can show something and it'll look really sharp, and I can kind of give demos or whatever, and then it'll come back to me, and in a second it'll focus on my face. And what's really neat about this, the way it's actually going about doing that, is it's using autofocus. So it's face tracking. So it gives priority to faces. So as I'm using it, it's tracking my face, and I can kind of move in and move out, and it's giving priority to the focus of the face. So if I do bring something up, it won't actually focus on this. It'll keep my face in focus unless I cover my face, and then it'll go, oh, I don't see a face anymore, and then it'll focus on that, but then it'll come back here, and then it goes, oh, there's a face. So that's kind of the behind the scenes on how that technology is working, and it works extremely well. When you're working with other cameras that don't have autofocus period or don't have great autofocus, it's constantly like not always sharp. Versus these cameras, I like them so much because it has those autofocus. That's honestly one of the biggest reasons I like these cameras is its ability to do really, really good, quick quality autofocus. Yeah, so once more, that's the Canon M50, the Canon M200, and there are other cameras as well in the Canon line that do a great job with autofocus. And there are some of the Sony lines as well. I found the most success if I want to be using it with something like Zoom or tying it right into YouTube without having to go through a box. These cameras over USB, take a USB out of the camera, plug them into my computer. I don't have to go through a converter box or do any of those fancy things, have more wires and things to worry about. I can just install this plugin that Canon's released, plug it in via USB, and I'm off to the races, and it looks great. And I'm a big fan of it, especially with that autofocus ability there. All right, back to, let's see, what do we got here? We did camera, we did audio, and let's see, oh, there we go, I went the wrong way. Oh yeah, location's the last thing. So we did lighting, G1S, I really like that light. Oh, one last thing on lighting, I guess that's worth mentioning. The way that we think about anybody in the video business, the kind of most basic way to think about lighting is what's called three-point lighting. What that means is there's three different specific types of lights that are hitting you. And in my case, I'll give you a demo. The three-point lighting that I'm using is this big one that's bouncing off the wall here. That's what we call the key light. So your key light is the first light. Usually that's a big soft light. So again, bouncing off of a wall, bouncing off of a foam core. And then you have fill. In this case, I don't have a fill light, but I'm in a room that has, so if I turn my lights off, this space naturally has, this is no lights. This is just the ambient light that's in the space that I'm on. That light is serving as my fill light to kind of make it so I don't have too much of a shadow over here. It's kind of just filling that up a little bit. And the last light is this edge light. So behind me, you can kind of see my hair. Sometimes it's called a hair light. Sometimes it's called edge light. And I'm over a black background. So I want to make sure that I have something that helps me pop out a little bit. So as you can kind of see, that light behind me that's hitting me is helping me pop out of my background a little bit. You can kind of see it on my shoulders a little bit, and you can see it in my hair. That is a great way to make sure that, and honestly, that edge light, that's one of those little things that makes you stand out. That's a big difference between, okay, this is just somebody with a nice camera versus, oh, this is somebody who understands lighting and you look good. Having a little bit of an edge light goes a long way to help. So what I recommend a lot of people do with lighting is this G1S. You could take two of them, pick up two of these lights. One of them is your bouncing off soft card, is your key light, and you put one behind you. And what's great about these lights, you can kind of see I got a little bit of a pink edge. These lights have full-blown RGB, so you can do, like, if I wanted a blue edge on this side, I could put that behind me here. See that? Like, and I can have it out of the shot. Now I'm getting that cool little blue edge. So that's just taking one of these guys and putting it on a different mode, and you can get really creative with how you look and make it look extra sharp. So yeah, last L in there is location. I don't need graphics or anything for this, but I have my own example here. Think about what you have back there. Granted, I have a lot of stuff going on, but I feel like I've spent a lot of time thinking about the kind of stuff I would want in the background of my shot. If you couldn't tell, I'm a bit of a nerd. I've got my first Macintosh back there. I've got my Wally Lego set. You know, I've got, I'm in film and video production, so I've got a movie chair and an old light that I've retrofitted with a new bulb in it, you know, LED bulb. And I'm using a Hue, the strip back there is a Hue light strip and a Hue bulb that I can kind of program as what I would call practical lights. And they have like these little remotes that I can turn them on and off or set up different colors or whatnot. I love working lights into the background of my shot, and you can really dial in the brightness and the color and all that kind of stuff. So that's been a lot of fun. And then I've got a couple guitars and, you know, cameras and all that kind of stuff. Everything I feel like is, I'm trying to make it tell something about myself, you know what I mean? And so, but it's clean. Well, I don't know if I can call it clean. There's a lot going on, but this camera, because it's focusing on me, it makes the rest of that kind of blurry back there. So I can still have the attention be on me when I'm speaking, but you can still see some kind of knickknacks and bits of my personality kind of in the set that I'm on. And so location, think about where you are. Of course, think about how the lighting in the location might be. Think about the audio in that location. Everything kind of ties back into the location. You know, you got to think about the lighting, got to think about the audio and how you're going to look and where are you going to place that camera? What is behind you? What are you going to see behind you? And and a simple solution, just throw up a black, these are just on Amazon, $40, a black curtain. You know what I mean? And I just draped it over something. There's nothing fancy going on, you know, and they're not terribly expensive, but there's curtains galore on Amazon. You just find a curtain you like. I really like black, white, gray. I think are great ways to make you and whatever you're wearing be neutral and work with it, whatever. Because if I put a big blue background there and I wore a different shade of blue one day, it might look a little odd. So I really like neutral colors myself, but there's obviously all kinds of ways you can do that. And it doesn't have to be a backdrop. In my case, it's not really great looking behind me, and so I like being able to kind of control that a little bit. But there's a lot of great ways you can do that without having to spend a ton of money either. And honestly, it's sometimes just looking around and playing, setting up a camera and seeing what does it look like once I put the camera over here. And you'd be surprised sometimes if you zoom in a little bit, or if you just rotate the camera a little bit, what kind of difference does it make? In my case, you know, if I were to rotate this camera around a little bit, I've been trying to set up a couple options, and I'm still kind of playing with it. Like, might I be able to do a mode over here? Like, if I extended that backdrop a little more over there, could I use this space differently and all of a sudden have a completely different look just by spinning my camera a little bit? Things like that are things that you could think about that might give you more flexibility.
Yeah, and I think also when you think of location, yeah, that's great. No, that's great. Also, location and lighting, if you don't have a setup yet with actual lighting, setting up in front of natural light, a window, so that just basic shots of thinking, okay, my back, don't do what Kevin's doing, basically what we do.
I was going to say, I'm breaking a cardinal rule here. I didn't have time to set up properly, so it was the best I could do.
But it's good
over there's all luggage.
But here, look at Kevin
land.
though. Look at him for a second. Like, it doesn't look bad. Like, because he's lit himself well, there are ways you can break the rules. Know the rules, but know how you can break them. In Kevin's case, he looks great.
And I was going to say, I have a huge honking 1x light here that if I turn off.
Yeah. So when you have a window behind you, generally, so this is the way not to do it. That's what happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you have enough light, you can actually, find a way to make a window work behind you. And it's tough to do it right, but if you know how to break those rules, it's a great way to do it. But generally speaking, like you said, Michaela, absolutely, a window can be your key light if you use it right. So instead of having the window behind you, put that window in front of you,
right? And
then you're getting this nice ambient, big, soft light. That's your key light. That's making you look really awesome. The same way that I'm bouncing it off of a big piece of foam core. You know, if you have a big window, it's a giant, soft source, especially if you've got like a white blind in front of it. That just diffuses and softens that light even more.
Yeah.
I'll all about that.
I love it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm breaking a lot of rules here because I just apologize. I didn't have time to get this perfect, but the color balance is all wrong. The lights are set up. The lights are set up facing the other way where there's not much natural ambient light coming in. But you see, it's all super blue behind me. Well, if I had time to tweak the lights to match that and then change the sensor of the camera, you know, that's.
Are you going to do the purple, a little bit of purple and green, maybe tonight?
Something like that.
There you go. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
But
I have 3 of these lights. And one thing I was going to say that to Ryan's excellent points is that my experience with lighting is if you buy one, you should buy 2. And if you're buying 2, you should probably buy 3. Because having one light gets limited really fast. So having 2 lights, and the one that's nice about this one is, and probably yours too, is that you can control it from your phone. So you can set them up to be the same,
Bluetooth
or
control,
you know, or the color, temperature, you know, all that stuff. So it's you can get them kind of positioned where you want. Then you have to grab them and mess with them. And these are nice because they're magnetic. They stick to my ceiling because there's a vent in the ceiling.
That is cool.
So this is our key light. Is literally, our ring light is just going to be sticking in the 3 of these in the ceiling, just projecting straight down for that same exact thing you were talking about.
That's cool.
Yeah. And honestly, the technology in lighting has changed so drastically, even just in the last couple of years with lights like the ones that Kevin and I are both using that have full color and all kinds of flexibility. It has a built-in battery that'll last 3 hours, you know, all that kind of stuff in a light that costs under $100. Man, a couple of years ago, like I probably would have bought like 10 of these things. And I do. I keep buying them because they're so affordable and so flexible. That little lights like that, and especially with, like you said, you can control them from your phone, and it's really, really flexible, powerful lights. And because of the battery, you could take them to go. I'm trying to build a go bag here of my portable kind of kit. So no matter where I am, I can have some lighting, I can have a good camera, and all that kind of stuff. And it's been pretty cool to see how portable and affordable a lot of the stuff has become, which is just
Just, these are
It
aperture.
opens up a lot of doors for a lot of people.
Yeah.
These are aperture lights. They sell a
Yeah.
4 and like a 12 kit. That's a hard shell kit that has built-in wireless charging in a Pelican.
Nice.
So it's pretty cool for that.
Yeah. And
But
we
just to
have
talk about lighting, this is the light I have. This big 1x1 that's 10 years old now. And it was kind of cheapo when I bought it 10 years ago. And it's like, man, I got to upgrade. And I have a kind of a half-size one here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That, these are my old lights. And that's my new light.
And we'll be putting, I know Ralph is asking, we're going to be putting up links. They said put a link to Kevin's light too. So we'll be sure, because they love that magnetic capability. So we'll be putting links to all of these things that are up. Also, Ryan mentioned this before, but he does consulting too. So if you really want to up your game, I know he's worked with Jules before for some work, but we're going to post all that. But yeah, you can do callupgrade.com, and Ryan can help you with setting up your own live streaming to make it as professional as you want. But we hope this kind of gives you guys some inspiration. And as you can see, Kevin's setup, I mean, it is an operation. It's not just, I'm literally
Well, this
just
is
on my
more
laptop.
for tonight. I mean, this is
Right.
So what I have here is I have 2 HDMI dongles. I think it's going to the 2 cameras I have. And to Ryan's point, one of them could have just been USB to my Canon, but I just don't have a USB cord. But for tonight, at midnight Eastern, we're going live on HSN. HSN uses Skype to get these remote things. So I'll have 2 separate Skype calls. So one camera will be in this laptop, another camera will go in this laptop. Both of these will call a separate Skype at the control room at HSN, and then they'll pick the shot they want.
Right.
It's kind of a low-tech way of doing it, but
Yeah. So Kevin, but when you do the live, usually on Wednesdays, this Wednesday they're not doing it because of the HSN live, but next Wednesday you're going to return back to doing these awesome lives where you and Sam talk about behind the scenes. That setup is what's that
setup
camera
is,
setup? Yeah.
So let me just, that's my A7, which is this guy right here. I can't tell this is in focus. Yeah, so that's my A7. Right now I'm using the Lab, so it's, that. But ordinarily, this guy's on top of it. And actually last week I had them both, because I was using my desktop computer, so the luxury of that. I had them both going into my audio interface, so they were both kind of online.
Oh, cool.
Actually, all 3, because I had a Lab, Sam had a Lab, and I had that just as a backup. And then with the audio interface, you can kind of present all 3 of those channels to vMix for that. But yeah, so it's the camera. I just got my 3rd one of these lights, but then I have 2 kind of set up. If the camera's here, look, facing this way, I have kind of one light here, and then the other one kind of there. And we're only, 3 or 4 feet away, and they're fine. The one thing about these lights is they're not very powerful. So,
you have to be
the amount of light that thing's throwing off, it's, a huge difference.
And
I think that's...
Yeah, and again, thinking about the content, I would highly recommend you guys watching some of Sam and Kevin's lives. Like, you guys you pick something to drink that night that's corresponding to the episode. You have objects from the episode, like when you went to Corning, to the Corning Museum of Glass, you had the balls of glass that you feature in the show that you were able to do yourself. So it really is this beautiful interaction of showing your fans or showing audience members a real personal story to whatever your content is, whether that's live streaming a show that's currently streaming on Create or wherever it's airing, or just doing a viewing yourself. You could do like a talk on your own, but it gives the audience such a personal attachment and personal conversation, because then they can interact with you directly and ask you all these questions, and they say how beautiful the glass is and how fun that is. And I love how you guys were drinking, when you were in Vienna or Budapest, sorry, you were drinking, everything was very curated and very well thought out. And I think that's great. It's such a great way to create content that way.
Do you know the number 1 question we get?
What are you drinking? Is that it?
Who's the weird bearded guy next to her?
But that's great, because no one ever gets to see you on camera. Well, maybe once or twice. But it really does give people a view into as deep as you want. You know, it could be less personal. Like if sometimes the kids make a little appearance. Elizabeth was on, you know,
Mhm.
pattering around in her PJs, but
Yeah, and you know, as far as kind of, I just like Ryan, I'm kind of a geek. I love equipment and kind of pushing boundaries and just understanding things. And the next thing I want to do, and I haven't even tested this yet, but is with vMix, it has its own kind of built-in Zoom interface in a way. So you basically send someone a link, they click on it, and then they kind of come into your vMix mix. So it's just like we're doing right now, but it's using the software that I use to broadcast our stream from. So that we could have a conversation with someone that we featured on the show,
oh,
you
that'd
know,
be
live
cool.
while people are watching. It's like that's the kind of the next evolution. I just haven't had a
Yeah,
chance to really test that out yet.
yeah, that'd be
And one thing about
great.
testing is because there's a lot of variables and I've made mistakes and things I think are working and then they don't, like earlier. But you know, testing is a huge thing. Um, I have a test Facebook page that I think Samantha might be admin of, just so I can see somebody else see what they're looking at. But it's not public. But like anytime I'm doing anything with Facebook, when I was testing out these cameras, testing out any of this stuff with vMix, you know, I test all the time. And if you ever had access to my test page, it's hilarious because it's me literally looking at the camera going, test one, check, check, one, check, check, check.
That's so
But you
smart,
know,
though. That's
yeah,
really
and
cool.
it's because streaming's scary. The second you hit that button, like everyone's watching you. So like really understanding what it looks like before you're in that position of being on camera to an audience. It's an important thing, the testing part. And with Facebook, the way I set it up years ago, just a test page that no one has access to, and I can stream to that, and I can see it, but no one else does.
Yeah. And I have to say it is scary when you're going live, but what's also wonderful, perfect example when it didn't go well and you guys just used your phone and the interaction was just as strong. Like yesterday, we had to stop mid my Facebook Live and start again because we were having glitches and everybody stayed. Everyone came back. You know, people because there's a little bit more grace, I think. Everyone's a little more forgiving because we're all kind of trying to figure this out as we go along. So also be a little forgiving to yourself when you're trying to create this content and do live streaming. You know, the best thing is whenever something goes wrong when we're doing this, we just have to laugh about it and everybody kind of goes along with it. And I think that's the best way to approach this. We have a couple questions before we run out of time. And I know that Kevin has to get going because they have to set up for HSN. So, um, Anthony asked, "Do you use OBS or Wirecast for streaming through a higher end camera?" Did you answer that already, Ryan? I'm not the geek person, so
Oh
I
yeah,
don't.
I'd be happy to kind of give a small, not going into too much detail, but
Yeah,
yeah, whether it's streaming or connecting, uh, OBS is a very, very powerful piece of software that I use for a lot of stuff. There, like Kevin mentioned, there's a lot of great options that are more even better, have better capabilities for streaming related stuff like bringing in comments. OBS, as far as I know, I'm not familiar with a way to kind of easily bring Facebook comments on, but I do like OBS for a lot of different things. Everything that you've been seeing me today, whether it's launching an intro video to have my name on there and that kind of stuff, or having the different graphics pop up, and all that kind of stuff, I'm doing through OBS. But one key piece of magic that is allowing me to make that happen is this little box here. It's called a Stream Deck, and so these are all the buttons that I'm hitting every time if I want to have that kind of call to action graphic pop up. I'd hit that button and then that would pop up before I just want to go back. Let's see if I can focus in. I want to go back just to my close-up camera, go there, and I can label all these things and I can do all kinds of, and you could do all kinds of cool color coding. Have different buttons for different things, all kinds of great stuff. Granted, this is where a lot of my consulting work is helping people build these setups because it's fully custom. I'm running open source software on the Stream Deck itself, not using the software it comes with, so that I can do a lot more complicated things. I can control my lighting with this thing, all these kinds of things. It's been a lot of fun to be able to play with the power. So OBS is the software I'm using. Stream Deck is the way that I'm controlling OBS. And there are a lot of other great platforms. On the Mac, I really like Ecamm Live for a streaming software that lets you bring in comments and all kinds of stuff. A lot of people I know swear by StreamYard. I still have been meaning to dive into that. I've seen a lot of great ways that people are using StreamYard for live stuff. But there's so many great options out there. A lot of great
yeah.
options.
And StreamYard, you don't need anything it's like its own third-party app that kind of links up to all your social media channels. So you don't need extra plugins. You can just kind of use your own camera if you want that. And it's kind of like if you've ever used Canva for design, it's like the streaming for dummies, the basic super drag and drop kind of version. Another question from Anthony was, what lens is that on your DSLR, Kevin?
This is actually a Canon 2.8 24-7D through an adapter on my Sony.
Cool. And then we had a great question, and I think a lot of people feel really conscious about that. Is there any good way to tell if you're being seen or heard at the beginning of Facebook Lives? I feel like such an idiot asking, can anybody see me? Can you hear me? It seems unprofessional and clunky, but I do that, and I think you guys do that too. It's very natural because I think it's, like I said, everyone's pretty forgiving in this moment. Actually with that, Kevin, answer that, but then Ryan, if you can talk about that intro video. I know that we talked about it on the call before, but Kevin, do you guys do like, hey everybody, can you see us? Can you hear us? Or do you have another computer running to check?
I have, if you watch the videos, you'll see me, like Sam will be talking and I'll be with headphones on. I have the feed on my phone. So I know it's not through my computer, like it's like a third party device that I know it's working, and I actually monitor audio mostly through that because the audio might sound great for me. I'm plugging into my computer or my camera, but if it's not going out to the internet properly, no one's hearing it. And
Right.
we had a lot of problems early on that I thought was our internet bandwidth. It turned out it was the processor of my Surface was just not up to snuff for doing video work like this. So the second I upgraded got a new computer, it's like, I mean, I was struggling to do 1.5 megabits per second, and it would cut in and out. I'd be watching the meters because on Facebook you can see the stream health, they call it,
Yeah.
and like it was, we'd be talking, it would just go down to 0 for a while because something in my computer fired up and messed up the whole thing. And so by getting a computer that had, was beefier, like that all those problems went away.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew it was happening because I was using from my phone, not the computer that I'm broadcasting from.
Yeah, that's a great.
And
it's having a third party. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's a great question because it happens every week where I was like, okay, Sam, you ready? Okay, you ready? Okay, and I hit the live button and I look at her and she goes, "Are we on?" It's like it happens every week, like. Yeah, but there's no big blinking light that that's just the way that it works. You hit the button, you got to trust it.
Yeah.
So I think what either Ryan or you said earlier that it's not a big deal. It's not like, oh, you don't look professional because it's Facebook Live. It's not like you're broadcasting on CNN or CBS or something like that. But it is funny because like you think that'd be this big blinking light like you are live, and it just doesn't do that.
Right.
So you just gotta trust it. You know that everything works. When I hit that button, it's live. You click the button, you're live. It's
Yeah. From my experience, I use b.live, and we'll put all these links again in the post. But what's great is when you say, okay, feed it live to Facebook, it does a countdown. So it goes 3, 2, 1, and the screen goes a little gray. So then you're like, all right, it looks like you're about to take a picture. So that's kind of nice, but I think it does it a little early because when I watch the live later, it's definitely showing me like, okay, you guys ready? So I think there's a couple seconds delayed in that one.
And that's one thing you guys were laughing earlier. I guess I got the screen was frozen on kind of a funny phase. Mm-hmm. That happened to us a couple times where I hit the button and we're both like, and that first frame a lot of times is the one that uses like the thumbnail is the very first frame. So like we're like the next week we both were like, you ready? Okay. Because it's like because you don't know. Like, yeah. Like, oh, is this working?
That's great.
Wow.
So Ryan, we have a couple minutes left, but I want you to really explain the idea of the intro video.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or the countdown video. I'm sorry.
It ties right into exactly what you're talking about because people always going live, starting something always feels a little awkward. So the way I think that a mindset that can really help is to go, okay, yes, our stream has started, but the show, the event, whatever we're doing hasn't started yet. think of it like we're about to go live, even though maybe you hit the live button. And sometimes there's little graphics you can get to do a countdown, and honestly, what I think we did the other day when we were chatting about this is on your phone. Most phones have some sort of timer app. So literally, sometimes what you can do is you can just set a timer for whatever you think it is, 5 minutes in this case, and then just boom, set that up there, and you've got a little countdown. There was a live event with the cast from one of my favorite films, That Thing You Do. They went live to do a watch party where they're going to all watch That Thing You Do on Zoom together and comment. And the way they got everybody to sync up their playback of the movie was they put a iPhone up and they said, okay, as soon as that hits 0, everybody hit play, including those of us who were watching. And while that countdown was happening, there was conversation going. There was people chatting. And so to that point of, hey, can you hear me? Yeah, it feels a little weird, but embrace that, own that. You know what I mean? Like say, hey guys, we're live. I think we're gonna start here in 5 minutes. We want to give everybody a chance to come on and use that as an opportunity to connect with your audience in a sort of non-scripted, just kind of, oh hey Susan, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Oh yeah, just kind of chit-chatting or talk about whatever or doing something silly. Like still make it meaningful content. What I don't like is when someone just puts up a content video. And it's okay, there's a place for that, but I'd rather see some sort of meaningful content, even if it's pre-recorded. Like you could make a pre-recorded video that's, just something silly or something fun that's 5 minutes long or however many minutes long. I like that kind of 5-minute number because if they hop on right as soon as you go live, they get notified. And then the video pops up and it says, we're going live in 20 minutes. Like, man, I don't got time to wait 20 minutes to wait for you to join live. But if it says 5 minutes and maybe you hopped on a minute after the notification popped up, 4 minutes, like I could wait maybe that long for the content to start, especially if within those 4 minutes, something kind of fun is happening. That's, I think, a great way to change your mindset there. And then there's this great excuse, if you will, during those 5 minutes. It doesn't matter if things are haywire, if things aren't working, if your sound isn't working, you're not live yet, so to say. So take that opportunity to work out those bugs, to say, okay, can you see me all right? Can you hear me all right? And interact, ask the audience something. Even if it's a small audience, big audience, doesn't matter. Use those opportunities and that countdown, that introduction, whatever you want to call that, to test your stuff and get people excited about what's going on. Or maybe you could have make sure you're subscribed, a couple little reminders of things that you want people to do. Hey, we just launched a newsletter. Make sure you go to our website and get signed up. All that kind of just the standard stuff that you want to get done. That's a great place to put that, and it doesn't feel forced later,
Yeah.
Also, that first few minutes.
Yeah, that's great. And also, if you use, StreamYard or BeLive, there's branding that can be in there too. So if you want to leave almost like a ticker tape on the bottom, like subscribe to our newsletter or follow us at whatever, or go to whatever website. Or if you have guests on there, you can put lower thirds for their names. It's kind of incredible. There's, depending on, and I think StreamYard costs like $20 a month. BeLive is like $25 a month. It's really cheap. It's super easy to use, very accessible. You have a lot of control. See how you're seeing 3 of us here. You would see the 3 different images and video screens and kind of drop in who you want as guests. It's really amazing. So, and you can change the format of the screens. It gives you a lot of control. Again, for beginner, I like to use that because I am just not a techie person, but I still want to be able to access, have a little more creative control in how people are seeing it. So it is 4:01. I know Kevin has to go. Kevin, thank you so much.
Sure.
Good luck tonight.
Before I go, I want to give you a sneak peek for tonight.
Oh, wow, they look beautiful.
Look at that.
Yeah.
You guys want to buy
cool.
some Samantha Brown luggage? It's on HSN tonight at midnight.
Tonight at midnight and all day tomorrow.
Dude, next
Beautiful,
level.
beautiful. Well, good luck tonight.
Amazing.
Congrats.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Brian, thank you. Kevin, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. There you go. I will keep you posted if we have someone for our next webinar next week. I will be actually traveling. We're doing a road trip to go see my parents. So we might put next week on hold and start again the following week, but we may or may not. You all are signed up for the newsletter, so you will get information. Tomorrow, this webinar will be live on our site on IPApublicmedia.com. All the links will be included. All of the callupgrade.com, everything that Ryan included, all the things that Kevin mentioned, we're going to be posting on that page so you can have access to it. Everything that I mentioned, BeLive, StreamYard, all of these social media platforms and third-party platforms that you can do to do streaming. But get creative, really stay engaged with your audiences. This is a really, take this opportunity, right? Think of this as an opportunity to either pivot your content or just find a way to stay connected with your audiences. And hopefully we'll see you guys soon. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for
Bye.
having me, Michaela.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye, Kevin. Bye. Thanks.